Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of BioNexus Health presents Autism Uprooted. Today, we'll be speaking with Stacy from North Carolina. And, Stacy's son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And since the diagnosis, Stacy has not left any stone unturned, did a lot of research. She went through a lot of treatments, both biomedical as well as the more invasive ones that are extremely cost prohibitive, in fact, multiple times. And she saw minimal results. She then decided to proceed with the Herbal Protocol to try a plant-based approach, which is, of course, completely non-invasive. And let's hear from Stacy herself the fantastic results that she has seen with her son.
Welcome to the BioNexus Health podcast with Dr. Jodie A. Dashore, who holds a PhD in integrative medicine, is board certified in integrative pediatrics, an internationally recognized pioneering clinician, and author. And now here's your host of BioNexus Health podcast, Dr. Jodie A. Dashore.
So hi, Stacy. Welcome to today's podcast. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yes. It's awesome that you're here. So how's North Carolina today? We have, here in Jersey, we have almost 60 degrees in the middle of winter. So it's like a heat wave, people are out golfing.
I think it's like 75 right now. It's so warm and nice out. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. See, I know I need to move somewhere south.
Right.
All right, so today we are going to talk about your son's journey with the plant-based protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So if I may start with asking, at what age was Kenneth diagnosed as being on the spectrum, and what have you tried prior? I know you left. I mean, you've done a lot of research. You've tried all the best methods, the best alternatives available out there. So can you tell us in brief?
He was diagnosed at about 2, only after we brought him to the doctor and he could read certain posters that were on the wall. But he couldn't talk to people, but he was reading off the posters and he said, that's really strange. He shouldn't, he doesn't talk, what's going on? And then we had early intervention and had that for a while. And so that was about 2.5, he was diagnosed.
Okay. See, this is, very interesting that he was reading, but he didn't really know what he was reading. It was just something that was he was gifted of sorts, but he was also on the spectrum, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Well, what did you try then?
So he was in early intervention and then went to a preschool for early intervention. So he was probably about 4. And one day, one of his classmates came out and said something to his mother. And I'd never heard the child say anything before. And I turned to her and said, wow, what did you do different? And she was very nervous to tell me. And we ended up corresponding through text. And so she had started doing some detoxing with her child.
Okay.
And it ended up being the ACC detoxing. And so that was sort of my first glimpse into there's other things you can do. And I'm a huge researcher and I read all this stuff and basically it was like nothing you could do. So this was my first eye-opening and I'm so thankful that it just happened to cross paths with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we also tried the detoxing and the ACC. I have this list of things and I cannot believe looking back what I did and really didn't see much change at all. We did B12 shots. We did IV chelation. We've done 4 rounds of stem cells. We bought a hyperbaric chamber We've done ionic foot baths. We've had one of those Beamer mats that he's slept on. We've done infrared mat, changed his diet. I mean, he's still on a very clean diet, gluten-free, and dairy-free. The chiropractor we had, he still does that. We did cranial sacral therapy. We did neurofeedback. We did sauna. We did GC MAF. We did camel milk. We tried oxytocin nasal spray. We tried synapsin nasal spray. And on top of all that, we continued to do the PT therapy, the speech therapy, and the OT therapy.
Oh, wow.
So that is all very exhausting. And we would see little tiny gains here and there, and then something else would crop up, but it was maybe just enough to kind of think, okay, let's look for something else that's going to help. You know, something else has got to help. And I just knew there's something else in there. Like he was in there. This was not, this is not going to be his destiny. We can help him to get better. Multiple different doctors, natural doctors, and things like that. And the first big change was when probably a week after we met with you on Zoom and we started the protocol. And all of a sudden he wasn't sweating at night. And he would sweat, it would go through the sheets, it would go through on his clothes, his whole shirt up to his shoulders would be soaking wet with sweat. His head would be soaking wet. And it was the strangest thing. And it would be a real weird, almost maybe ammonia kind of smell.
Okay.
And that instantly stopped. And we were like, wow. Like, so that was a physical change. And I guess to us, we had always been looking for mental changes or something like that, like not the physical, because he's very active. He doesn't really have any, he has gut problems, but it doesn't show. He's not constipated. He doesn't have diarrhea. None of those things showed, except he would sweat a lot. And at night, he would wet his bed to a point where we would put 2 diapers on him and then an adult pad in the diaper, and he would still wet through there. I mean, it was like I don't know how anybody could pee their pants that much. And we were like, that seems really weird. Like, this is just, and I did tons of research on it and I just could not find anything out about that. And so the one night he woke up and he was completely dry. There was no sweat. There was no pee. And I think we just started crying. We were like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. This is huge. And he has not sweat like that a day since since that first time. And about a week after his protocol, then he started peeing the bed a little bit, not to the point of through diapers or anything like that. And I remember talking to you and you said, well, this is like an indication that like he has an infection, like there's an infection. And that's exactly what we're trying to go after. And I thought, that is so cool. Like, that's amazing that you knew that right away. And then you see the results, like so quick. And I know it doesn't happen that quick for most people, but, and then it took about another week and a half, and then he stopped completely. And so the only accidents he ever has is, I think, if he's so tired during the day and it's just, and he just literally is sleeping through waking up, like a normal little kid. So, but yeah, that's a great, huge change to us.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
What an amazing recovery. Now, I mean, you literally listed everything that's out there. And right?
Yeah.
What did you say? You did 4 rounds of what?
We did 4 rounds of stem cells. We did 2 in the US.
Okay.
And then we did 2 in Panama.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I'm literally no stone unturned.
No.
Right. And I guess, all of that on one side, and then you started, how did you hear about me? How did you hear about BioNexus? Friends, family?
My sister Kate is going to school to be a naturopath, and she's very, very much natural minded. And I hadn't talked to her in a really long time, and I think people come into your life for a reason, and she crossed paths with me, and we just started talking. We realized we have the exact same like-minded about natural stuff and things like that. And she had already gone to you and seen huge changes. And she said, you've got to listen to this. And at that point, I was almost so exhausted that I was like, I just can't go through talking to another doctor. Like what, it's going to get our hopes up. We're going to say, yay, oh my gosh, we're seeing little changes. It's going to start to be a big change, and then we're going to get disappointed. So yeah, it was like, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And she goes, no, like, listen to this. Like, please, like, listen to this podcast. I think it was a talk that you had. And I got 20 minutes into it, and I stopped and I texted her, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like, you're right. Like, I have found my person. I'm going to make an appointment. And so that's how it happened.
Oh, very cool. I agree. People come into your life for a reason. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Sometimes things are just meant to be.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's been such a blessing to have known your family and your extended family as well. And, everyone's doing really good, especially the little guy. How old is he now?
He's 7.
He's only 7. Yeah. Oh. Now, you had mentioned to me that, a couple months into the BioNexus Herbal Protocol, he started, to understand left and right, tie his own shoelaces. He's looking at you. Yes, Mom, I can. So can you talk a little bit more about his cognitive development, his language development?
He started to have almost like a simple conversations back and forth. And it's much less cryptic than it was before. I think speech therapy and those kind of therapies teach like, I want this, and so that's how kids typically, I want, however they say it. And
right. So that's like basic functional language that just communicate needs, but he started to have a brief conversation.
Yes, in different words, and will say stuff that he will respond or say stuff and then laugh, and it's really funny, he kind of has a dry sense of humor. And so like he's very much aware of what's funny and what's not. And so that's pretty new as well. But yeah, he can put on his clothes, and he can make sure his shoes are the right shoes on his feet. He also doesn't, before he would want to elope and run away of the house. And so we used to have, we had all these like chains on the door. We looked like drug dealers.
Goodness.
When somebody came to drop off pizza, you'd have to do all these locks and chains, and you're like, no, it's just to keep our kid in. And so we don't worry about that as much. He's very much aware to not wander off. He'll ask to go outside now, and we'll let him outside, and he'll go in the yard, and we can see him from the window, and he'll go out and play with the dogs and, jump on the trampoline. And he's also aware when he's doing something that he shouldn't, because we've watched him play in the water or throw something in the water, and he'll look at the window and see if you're looking and so that's all very aware stuff, that I take as a gain, even if he's doing naughty stuff, at least he knows.
Yes. And perhaps a lot of that might be age appropriate as well.
Right. So we forget that they're kids as well.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. Now you travel quite a bit for work, so it must be a big load off your mind to know that Kenneth is doing so well.
Right. Right. And it's kind of great because if I travel for a few days and I come back, I can see such a difference. Or if my husband travels and comes back, he can see such a difference, because a lot of times it's hard when you're with them every
Right.
day to see,
Yeah.
the difference. And Kenneth also used to, with the weather changes, we knew when there was a storm coming, because he would not sleep at night. He would wake up and he would have a headache, and he would say his eyes hurt, and just be like so irritable. And since we started the nose spray with you, he has not had that at all. So that's really
That's
good.
great. Oh, good for him. Good for
Yeah.
him. That's
Yeah.
really good. Yes, it is, exposure to mycotoxins and sinus issues with MARComs can really do a number. It can also alter your kidneys electrolyte and minerals processing mechanism, which is where, many children, for many children on the spectrum, or just many children, can be connected to nighttime bedwetting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Kenneth hasn't been on the Herbal Protocol for very long, and he's doing really well. How does he do with the herbs and the nasal spray? Is he cooperative?
Yes, he totally is. He's used to, I've, from the very beginning, my whole list of things that I've tried with him, he's always been the best sport. And I've always really tried to be respectful of him and explain things to him and let him have feeling like it's, like he has a choice in the matter. But yeah, he's really good about it. it's just, these are the drops, and here's your, syringe full, and he takes it and he's done with it. So I do the drops, and Evan, my husband, does the drops too. And the nasal spray. So we'll say, okay, who should do it first? And he gets to pick who does it first, and he'll say mom, and then I'll have to do it, and then he'll say me, and then he'll do it. So we try to make it a game. And I think it's been fun for him that he's not the only one in the family that's having to do those kind of things.
That is very cool. That's
Yeah.
Often one of the best things that I've seen happen when your child on the spectrum starts to make, significant gains that stick, that mom and dad and siblings sometimes who have been living in the same, epigenetic environment as the child, they kind of sweep their health concerns under the rug, because it takes so much time and effort to care for a child with special needs, that once that is settled, I often get requests from moms and dads, grandmothers, grandfathers, that, can you also treat us? Because it's a completely natural protocol. And we would like to have, as much immune support and modulate our immune system as well and start to feel better. So that is really great to hear, that the whole family is kind of getting together. How are you and your husband feeling any health gains as well?
I think I feel mentally, less anxiety, and definitely Evan's headaches have gone away, just like Kenneth's. He has a lot less anxiety, a lot less like depression, or getting mad about things that you don't like. That's that thing that you and I talked about, when you're getting mad about something and you're like, I don't know why I'm so mad about that.
Right.
It's not really that important, but it affects you like that. So yeah, when you first said, okay, well, Kenneth has, these are all the things that Kenneth has. I think he has Lyme, he has this and this and this. And that was never on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done all these tests and all these things. I had done 2 different Lyme tests before with 2 different doctors. and nothing showed up. So Lyme or co-infections was never on my radar. And it didn't make sense until you said, if you're such a bad detoxer, you're not going to show it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that is brilliant. Why has no one told me this? Why have I never read this? Like that, like my son is such a bad detoxer that he doesn't show that he has all these co-infections and these Lyme. So if you work your way backwards and say, these are all the problems he's having physically and mentally, it brings you to Babesia, or it brings you to Bartonella, or, just like the peeing in the bed, or just like the cognitive issues. I mean, that's amazing to me. And so once I started doing that research, that's when I said, to my husband, honey, like, I think we should get tested. Like, let's get tested, because some of these symptoms, like we have, and I'm like, we should get tested and see what she thinks. And so that's kind of what pushed us to get tested. So my youngest son got tested, and then Evan and I did. And so Evan and I are on both on a protocol with you.
Good
But
plan.
I mean, we wouldn't have known, we wouldn't have even thought about it, because we don't have the typical, it hasn't gotten to the point where we have the typical problems that when you look up on WebMD,
Right.
Lyme, those things,
Yeah. Lyme disease, can be especially in North Carolina, New Jersey, Connecticut, I mean, almost everywhere in the country now, but especially those states, it can be pretty endemic, and at the same time difficult to diagnose because of the effect it has on your immune system. And then, on top of that, many children on the spectrum do not detoxify too well. So yes, lab testing can be quite controversial with Lyme and co-infections. Yes, I'm glad, you guys are demystified, so to speak, and
Right.
and on the right track to healing. That's great. How's he doing academically in school?
He's doing really well. They love him in school because he's not aggressive. He used to be a little bit aggressive, and not be in his own world and not pay attention and things like that. And he's doing much better. He's super gentle, and he's super funny, and talking a whole lot, to them. He's super smart. He does have OCD, and that's part of what I'm dealing with you to try to, which I'm sure is one of the co-infections. So like, he loves numbers, like that's his thing. So, but he's so smart. He can add, subtract, faster than a calculator can. You can just keep hitting it and he'll say it before it even comes up. So he's very, very gifted in that area. It's just sort of getting him interested in other areas, but he's slowly starting to find other things interesting. So I feel like that veil of being obsessed about numbers is starting to lift. So that's a good feeling.
Yes, and I'll bet, Kenneth feels good as well, because internally he is feeling so much better that he's able to talk, he's able to express himself now. So, he will slowly start to expand his horizons academically as well, other than just understanding. But
Right.
He is smart as a whip.
Yeah. Yes, he is. Yeah.
Good. So, to summarize, what would you say to other parents of children on the spectrum watching this podcast?
It's very overwhelming when you have a child on the spectrum, and there's a lot of, I don't know what I should do, but then there's always like, for me, as soon as I read about something new, I went and tried it because, oh my gosh, what if that, and it was very addicting. You know, it's almost like a gambler. Like you're like, oh, well, maybe this next thing will help him. Maybe this next thing. And we spent, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on every new therapy, every new, you know, little thing that could help when the foundation was crumbling, you know? And so those other things, yeah, they might've helped for like a week or seen a little gain, but I don't think internally we were getting him healthy. I think the very first thing that anybody should ever do is check for Lyme and co-infections and try to get the core healthy. And then if you want to try some of these other therapies, then go ahead. But it's all about doing the right thing at the right time. That's definitely what I think, because I think I rushed into a lot of things and I don't think he could handle it and it wasn't helping then.
Yes. Well, you and me both, Stacy. Yeah. In the beginning, you know, back in the day, before I came up with the Herbal Protocol, you know, started making the herbals, etc. That's what we did. You know, we traveled to the best experts that were available back in the day for pandas, Lyme disease. And I mean, I certainly learned a lot along the way, but, you know, things never just never came together. There was, you know, we were trying to save his life because he was in a wheelchair, leg was paralyzed. So we did what we had to do, but then we didn't see any kind of full remission. You know, we even got comments from world-renowned practitioners that I understand he's in the wheelchair. Maybe that's his destiny. And I'm like, really? No, I don't think so. There has to be something else going on. And yeah, so for us, it was what I discovered was there are many things that have to be treated together, not try one thing at a time. So, you know, once I started treating everything together like we do on the BioNexus protocol now for all my patients, you know, even if you're going little by little, step by step, but as long as you're casting your net wide, that is the best approach that seems to help, you know, so many children and now so many children worldwide. But that made the most difference for my son. And I didn't really mind, you know, like upping the dosage, because what am I upping the dosage of? Herbs.
Right.
You know, so that worked out well for me as well. And now look at me, you know, I've been blessed, I've been privileged to help hundreds, if not thousands worldwide. And you know, I meet amazing moms like yourself.
Yeah, I'm so thankful because I feel like we've physically seen things and they've stuck for the first time. And so that's huge because you're finally, you know, I think you're, you know, almost gets to a point where you're feeling desperate and you're like, wait, did he, you know, is he talking more? Is he doing that? Like where you don't really know on other therapies and you just want to see something. And then, you know, I'd say to my husband, well, are we just wishing that he did, or do you really think he is better than he is? You know, there wasn't that concrete proof. Like, you know, he's not wetting the bed. He's not sweating, you know, he's day after day able to put on his own clothes and able to put on his shoes, you know, and it hasn't gone away. So that's huge.
Indeed. You know, with herbals, that is the one thing that I have heard from all parents, that the gains are consistent and they are visible, right? You know, they hear positive things from teachers, from friends, from family. So it's not like just mom and dad, you know, kind of trying to look for some minute gains and hold on to it. And then, you know, one week later, it's gone.
Right.
That, yes. So you're absolutely right when you say that once you get to the core of the problem, that's when, you know, and all that we are doing is completely natural, is plant-based, and then the gains will stick. No matter if you go through ups and downs, because, you know, pans, you will have flare-ups. when you're re-exposed, right? Mold
Right.
mycotoxins, you will have flare-ups, but it's not that your previous gains will be gone. That doesn't typically happen from what I've seen so far.
Right. No, I mean, we'll go through times where, he'll have a weekend and he just won't say very much, or if he talks, it's very, very quiet and he just doesn't want to speak, and so, my husband and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like what is going on this week? Because we're gun shy from everything else we've done, like, oh God, and then my husband reminds me, no, after every sort of lull, there's always a big gain, and sure enough, as soon as he says it, like, the next day, Kenneth will come up and say some sentence that he's never said in his whole life and, do something big. And I'll be like, oh, okay. But yeah, it comes and goes, and it's definitely a roller coaster, but you're going in the right direction.
Yes, that's the key, that that you are finally headed in the right direction. Absolutely.
Right.
Keeps us motivated as a parent to keep moving on. And that, you are already seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And you know what, this talk today is going to give a lot of hope to many parents watching, that there definitely is light at the end of the tunnel. Once, like Stacy said, once you get to the core of a problem and you have the right approach.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for taking time out from your day and chatting with me today. I'm pretty sure it'll be very useful to many watching.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I hope the next time I talk to you, I'll even have more exciting things. And
it's wonderful to see your smile.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Autism Uprooted. I'm glad you were able to join me, and I hope it was useful to you as well. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you all again on the next episode. Till then, take good care. Namaste.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jodie A. Dashore, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit bionexushealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugs. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.